Hey guys, welcome back to another video of the interview preparation series. In this video, we'll code 4 problems. First is finding the nth Fibonacci number. Second is printing the Fibonacci series from 1 to n. Third is the increasing print from 1 to n or for any generic m to n. And fourth is printing the decreasing series from n to m. So let's get started with the Fibonacci series. So what is this Fibonacci series? Let's find out. Okay, so most of you might have an idea about what it is, but those who don't, let me tell you. Fibonacci series is the series 0, 1, 1. We have 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and so on. So do you sense a pattern over here? So let me write one like this. It'll be easier for you. Yeah. Okay. So what do you think is the pattern in this series? So we can see that when we add these two numbers, we're getting this number. Similarly, when we add these two numbers, we're getting this number. And this pattern goes on like that, okay? So what can be a logic for this, right? So let's say I start with my first number. Let's say first number is 0 and my second number is 1. Okay, this is something which we always know. It always starts from this. Now how do we calculate the third number? So let's say we have third number is equal to first plus second, right? So this is 0 plus 1 equal to 1. So that's how we're getting the third number, right? So the first loop is perfectly fine. I mean the first calculation. Now, how do we move on to the next one? We have to keep adding these two, right? So in that case, we need to update the value. Now, how do we update the value? So this is initially our first and this is our second number and this is our third number, right? So when we are getting this two, what do we see? Which two numbers are we adding? We are adding this and this. So in this case, our second number becomes our first number and our third number becomes our second number, right? So what happens after this? So what should you do? You have to say that, okay, after the first calculations are over, now I'm going to update the values of my first and second numbers. So my first number becomes the second number and the second number becomes the third number. So that's it. Very simple. You don't have to do anything else. Just initialize first and second numbers as 0 and 1 respectively. And after this calculation is over, we have to reassign these values, right? It's that simple. Now, this thing, you can do it iteratively and you can also do it recursively. So right now we're going to see the recursive approach for this, like how to solve this problem using recursion. So we're going to see two categories, let's say, in Fibonacci series. One, we're going to find the nth Fibonacci number, right? And we're just going to print this one number. So let's say I want to find the fifth Fibonacci number. What should it give? It should give 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it should give 3, right? And the other thing that we're going to code is the Fibonacci series up to n, right? So let's say if I give 5 as the input, it should say, okay, the Fibonacci series up to the fifth position is 0, 1, 1, 2, and 3, right? So this should be my output. So we're going to do both these questions using recursion, right? We're going to code both these questions using recursion. So let's start with coding this one and then we'll move on to this after that, right? Okay, so here we are coding the Fibonacci problem. So we're going to find the nth Fibonacci number. So let me just go ahead and import our util library first. Alright, so this is going to be used for scanner. Now let's create our function. And I'm going to pass n as the argument. So as we saw, the first number is 0 and 1, right? So in these two cases, we are going to just return n, because the 0th number is 0 and the first number is 1. So now we are going to go and store this in first. I'm going to call for n minus 1, and for second I'm going to call n minus 2, right? So now what does this do? When we want to find, let's say, the number for the number 2, we are going to need 1 and 1. So first is going to return the previous one, and second is going to return the one before that. Similarly, when we need to find for 1 in the third position, that is in 0 1 1, when we need to find the third position 1, then this is going to return 1 and this is going to return 0, and then what do? We need to just add them up, right? So we're going to say first plus second, and then we are simply going to return this answer. That's it, right? And now I'm going to go ahead and make the main function, and I'm just going to copy it from here again. We don't need to write it again and again. Here we're just getting the input from the user, giving the value of n. Now I'll say the Fibonacci number is, and then after this I'm simply going to call the function. Okay, now how should we call this function? Because see, we are saying 0th number is 0, first number is 1, right? So we are starting our numbering from 0 for our understanding, but the user is not going to see that, right? For user, the first number is 0, second number is 1. So I'm just going to call for n minus 1, right? And now this is going to give us the required output. So let's say I say 3. Let's say the Fibonacci number is 3. Now let's say I want to find the fifth number. It's going to say it's 3 because it's 0 1 1 2 3, right? So this code works just fine. We are finding the nth Fibonacci number, and next we're going to see how we need to modify this to print the entire series. Here we're just printing the fifth Fibonacci number, we're not printing the entire series, right? So now we're going to modify the code to print the entire series. Okay, so now let's write the code for printing the entire Fibonacci series. So I have made the class over here, new file, and as usual I'm going to import util, right? So this we'll use it for the scanner. Now in this, what we can do is let's create two static variables, right? For first and second. First is 0 and first is 0 and second is 1. Oh, I missed the int over here. Yeah. So now we have these two initial variables that we can use for printing. Now let's find for the other values. So let's say I call this function as public static void Fibonacci only. Name be the same. Okay. And now what are we going to see? We will see if the value of this n is greater than 0 or not. Because if it is not greater than 0, then we're not even going to go further, right? So we'll see if n is greater than 0. If it is greater than 0, then we are going to say the answer is first plus second, right? So now we have found the answer, and now we are simply going to print. Okay, so answer, and then we'll have a space. Right, that's it. Now we have done all this, we have found the next term, and we have printed the answer. Now what do we have to do? We have to reassign the values. So my first becomes second, and my second becomes third. Here third is answer. Alright, that's it. And now that we have reassigned the values, now we're going to call the function again with n-1. That's it. Alright, so this part is done. And now when we see that this if n is greater than 0 condition is not satisfied, then we will simply just return that okay, fine, nothing else is needed. This is return statement, actually it's optional, but it's just a good practice, because if anyways n is not greater than 0, then compiler will go back to the place from where the function was called, which is our main function. All right, so now we are going to simply copy this from here, the main function. All right, so now we are going to get the value of n. All right, now here is a little twist. What are we going to do? First, let's say, okay, let this line be here, Fibonacci. I'm going to print the series. Now why is this showing an error? Because we see that here we are simply printing it, okay, but here the type is void, so this is not supported. All right, so let's just remove that, we don't need that. I'm just going to close the function over here, and this is not needed. All right, okay, now let's see what other modifications can we make. Now we have seen that we already know the value of the first and the second Fibonacci numbers, so they are 0 and 1. So why don't we just directly go and print them? So I'm going to say you directly print these two, you don't have to go inside the function and calculate anything again. So I'm going to say print the first and followed by the second. All right, and then I'm going to keep a space, because after that, after the second number, from the third number onwards, it's going to be printed using this statement. All right, and then now we have printed the first and the second one, so out of n we have already printed 2 values. Okay, we need to print the rest. So how are we going to do that? We are going to call n-2. That's it. All right, so let me go ahead and save this. Right, and we're going to execute this and see. Enter the value 5, so it's printing us, giving us the right output. So we have 0, 1, 1, 2, 3. Let's give some other value. Say we have 10. There we go. 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, and 34. All right, so this was the printing of the Fibonacci series. Just code it out and write yourself. Try some other approaches too without using these static variables. Right, we can do that. Okay, that's not a big deal. We can just pass arguments. So over here, so I suggest you guys to try all the different approaches, find any better approach if you feel is you can do for this. So just try that and see. All right, I hope now you have understood how exactly the Fibonacci series works. If you still have any doubts, please feel free to ask me your doubts in the comment section below. Now let's move on to the next problem, that is the increasing and decreasing print. Now this problem might look very simple to you. You might wonder, okay, what's so a big deal about the increasing and decreasing print? But the increasing and decreasing print is very crucial, very important for understanding how exactly these function calling takes place. Now, as I said in the first video of this module, that the function calling is very much analogous to our interrupts in OS. Like from one function, when we are calling the other function, the current function is stopped, it's interrupted till the answer for the other called function is returned. Now these two problems will help you get a clear understanding of where exactly this interrupt is taking place and how the stack is arranged, when you're calling the functions. So let's get started with understanding these two problems, and then we'll code them. All right, so let's understand the working behind the increasing and decreasing print. So as I said, these two codes are very important, very crucial for you to understand the working of the functions, like how the function calling is taking place, when the interrupt is taking place, and how you can play with the function calling to get different kinds of outputs, because the codes for increasing and decreasing print are very similar. The only difference between these two codes is the place where the function is called, right? So that makes a huge difference, and let's see how we're going to do it. So let's start with the increasing print, right? So in increasing print, so let's say this is our function and we're going to pass n, so which means I'm going to print from 1 to n. Okay, let's consider this the basic case. Okay, so in this, what happens, we need to have the base case, which is crucial for every recursion problem. So in this base case, we're going to stop when it's 1, and we're going to say, okay, now I have reached 1, now I have to print 1, and then I'm going to return. That's it, nothing else. So the base case is done. Now, what about the other cases? Now, let's say I have to print 1 first. So if I say when I am inside this function, if I print n over here and then call the function passing n minus 1, then what happens? So I'll explain this with the help of a dry run, let's say. So we have 3. Consider the small example, we have 3. Now when this 3 is passed to this, it's going to come inside, it's going to say, okay, fine, first we are printing. So it prints 3 and then it calls this function, it comes inside and then again prints 2 and then again it calls for 1 and then it prints 1 and it returns. So what do you think is happening here? It's printing in the decreasing order, that is the reverse order, but this is not what we want. We want to print it in increasing order. So what do we do then? So we see that the mistake that we are doing is over here. We are printing the number first and then calling the function for n minus 1. So that is not what we're supposed to do. We just have to remove this and we need to call the function first for n minus 1 and then print n, right? So now let's see if this works. So we're passing this 3 again and now 3 is being called, and then when it comes inside n is not equal to 1, it comes over here, it calls for function of 2, right? And then again it comes inside for 2 and then it sees that n is again not equal to 1 and then it comes over here and calls for 1. Now this time when it calls for 1, this function is going to see, okay, this condition is satisfied, so we are going to print 1, right? And then return statement is called, so it's going to return the execution back to this point from where the function was called. So this line is executed, 1 was printed, and then it's going to come here and print n. So the place from where 1 was called, the value of n was 2. So after this, 2 is going to be printed. And similarly, again, when 2 is after 2 is printed, and then we need a return statement here. After when 2 is printed, then when the function execution is again sent back to the previous function, it's going to resume from over here where n value is 3. So after 2, 3 is going to be printed. So this is how the increasing order function is printed, and decreasing order we just saw that it's the same thing, the exact same thing. We just need to put this statement on the top. So everything else is going to be the same inside, right? Everything else will be the same, the base condition and all that. The only difference is first we are going to print it, and then we are going to call the function for n minus 1. Right? So that's it. This looks like a very simple problem, but these two concepts are very important for you to understand this concept over here. See, the place, how this interrupt is taking place, how the next function is called, and where to the from where, which line the function will again resume executing, and all that. So in this case, after this line is executed, this line will be executed. So the return statement will be executed after the function call, right? So this was it. Now let's go ahead and code these two problems and check if our logic works just fine after it's coded. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and quickly code this increasing and decreasing print. So I have already created the class and imported util, and I've also copied this main code from our previous problem. You just have to, we'll come to that later. All right. So now let's say I want to do the let's say I want to do the increasing print first. Okay, so for that I am passing int n. All right, now what did we see? We saw that the base case was if n is 1, we are simply going to print 1. Just writing n over there to make it look more generic, right? And I'm going to return. And then in increasing print, what were we doing? We were first calling the function and then printing n. So I'm just going to go ahead and call the function over here, calling for n minus 1, and then I'm going to print n. I'm going to write the same statement over here, right? Okay, so this was for increasing print. Similarly, we can do the exact same thing for decreasing print. The only difference would be, so here let me change this to decreasing. So over here, that's it. The only difference would be that this function calling should be after printing. So I'm just going to remove it from there and put it there. That's it. All right, that's all. These two are the codes for increasing and decreasing print. And now let me go ahead and make some modifications in my main code. So first I'm going to, I'm just going to remove this line, don't need that. So first I'm going to print the increasing print. Right? So after this, I will just call this function from here, the increasing print function, and I'm going to pass this value in. All right, and then after that I'm going to do the same thing for, okay, let me just copy from there. I don't need to type it again and again. So I'm just going to change this, and this is going to give my decreasing print. And I'm going to call this function again for decreasing print. That's it, right? So let's go ahead and run this. So the value of n, we have 5. So we've got the increasing and decreasing print. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's give some other values. We can give 10. So it's working just fine. So these were the codes for increasing and decreasing print. I hope you've understood the codes explained in this video. If you have any doubts, feel free to ask them in the comment section below. Also, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel to watch more of such videos. Now in the next video, we'll be covering a few more important codes. So we'll start off with calculating the sum and product of the digits of a given number. Then we'll move on to how to reverse a string using recursion. And then we'll finally wind up with calculating the unit digit or the last digit of any mth power of a given number n. So see you all in the next video. Stay safe. Happy learning.